welcome to today's meeting, our first full council meeting conducted using video technology. Welcome especially to members of the public who are watching this meeting via our YouTube channel. Public attendance information can be found within the agenda and on our website. In line with government regulations, Bristol City Council has produced a set of virtual meetings procedure rules, and these are available on our website and are due to be updated as part of today's agenda. Members of Council are reminded to ensure their sound is muted when not speaking, and when speaking to first unmute and then mute again accordingly. Members of Council are also asked to ensure that they have their full councillor title listed on their profile. Please be mindful of etiquette guidance that has been issued, which will ensure you can be viewed and understood by members of the public watching at home. We have prior notice of those planning to speak to items, and I will call upon those councillors as agreed. We do not therefore ask that you do not, We do therefore ask that you do not add comments to the online chat function. This is to be reserved only for clear points of order on procedure, which will be mentioned by Democratic Services, which will be monitored by Democratic Services. There will be 3 methods of voting at this meeting. They are as follows. For the majority of reports, I will ask, can I take as agreed, and wait for any responses. I will then ask if anyone wishes to vote against. Councillors should only indicate if they do not agree. At item 14, a named vote will take place by way of a roll call, i.e. for the amendment. For the next vote, still at item 14, the substantive matter, there will be a block voting indicated by each political group leader. They will be voting on behalf of those in their groups as present at the meeting at that item. At this, our annual meeting, we will continue to elect the Lord Mayor and Deputy Lord Mayor for the city. However, the more formal ceremonial elements of the mayor-making ceremony will not take place this year. I would now like to move to agenda item 3, apologies for absence. I have received apologies from Councillor Thomas, Councillor Bolton. Do I have any other apologies?
I'm here, Lord Mayor. It's Councillor Thomas. I rescinded my apologies. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And my Lord Mayor, I did ask to record Councillor Kevin Quarterly sent his apologies.
Yeah, okay. Mayor, I've actually managed to make today's meeting, so I'm actually here today.
Thank you very much. We will.
I believe. Oh, beg pardon. I was going to say Martin Foder hasn't managed to get in, but I've just seen he has. Pardon me.
Okay. Thank you very much. I would now like to move to agenda item 4, the election of Lord Mayor, calling Councillor Carey of the Liberal Democrat Group to propose the motion. Councillor Carey.
I am delighted to propose Councillor Josh Clark for the position of Lord Mayor. I'm sure that the residents of Greater Brislington and Brislington West in particular are delighted to have the Lord Mayor as a champion for a second term. The history of this exalted position shows that the most any person has held the role is 6 times, with John Curl Haberfield holding the title 6 times in the mid-19th century. Our own Peter Abraham has held the title for 3 occasions, a record for modern times, and he assures me that the job is well worth the mental and physical toll it takes on your mind and body. I also know that we are delighted to see the new ceremonial chains on display. The City of Bristol is a truly magnificent place to live and work, and I know that Joss will serve our city with the pride and respect the position deserves.
Thank you. I would now like to call upon Councillor Holland of the Labour Group to second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And on behalf of the Labour Group, I'm pleased to second the nomination of yourself, Councillor Joss Clark, as Lord Mayor for the municipal year 2020 to 2021. I know that all Lord Mayors, and I've seen quite a few, always say that their year ends up being quite different from what they anticipated at the beginning, but I don't suppose that anybody in modern times has had a year that is quite as different from what they'd anticipated when they took on the role last year. And just to say very quickly, prior to this extraordinary circumstances that we're now living in, it had been an absolute pleasure to see you at many of the events that I was at. And I think all of the participants at those events really appreciated how you drew on your background as a social worker and that real empathy with people receiving social care. And I'm sure that you'll continue to do that both remotely and for real once you're able to. So I second.
Thank you very much indeed. Before I invite speakers to that motion, we are going to move to agenda item 5, the election of the Deputy Lord Mayor. I would like to call upon Councillor Davis from the Labour Group to move the motion. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor, and it's great to have you for another year. I'll follow colleagues in keeping my remarks brief, but I very happily and proudly propose the nomination of my dear ward colleague, Councillor Johnson, to be Deputy Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I would now like to call upon Councillor Hants from the Green Group to second the motion. Councillor Hants.
Hello, I'm delighted to second this motion and welcome Councillor Johnson. I'm sure she'll be absolutely splendid. I've worked with her a lot and good luck to her. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. We will now hear from speakers on the two motions. I would first of all like to call upon Councillor Hickman to speak on behalf of the Labour Group. Councillor Hickman.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's a pleasure to thank Cleo for her service and to mark your reappointment. I remember the day Cleo became Lord Mayor. The gallery was a joy to see. Lord Mayor, you have brought vim, vigour and style to civic life. Not least at last year's half marathon. Can people see it? The picture? It's also an honour and privilege to be among the first to celebrate Carol becoming our Deputy Lord Mayor. In these unprecedented times, we're more vividly than ever living through history. But today we should be aware that we're also making it. While our city has had some form of mayoralty since before the Normans, it took us 750 years to appoint a female Lord Mayor and 800 years to a woman to lead. Now, not despite us being away from the chamber, but because of this, our case is even more peculiar, but just as special. Even though our civic offices date back to the 1200s, today we inaugurate only the 12th woman to be Deputy Lord Mayor. And for the first time, for 3 consecutive years, we have had a female Lord Mayor and Deputy Lord Mayor. That Carol, member of Bristol Women's Commission and convener of the Labour Women Council Caucus, continues to make history for Bristol. As Ashley Ward Councillor and a non-exec director of the Community Interest Company, Carol spearheaded the return of the St Paul Carnival last year. As Avon and Somerset first BAME Deputy Bench Chair for the Magistracy, building on her work as a member of the Commission for Race Equality, Carol has worked hard to ensure that the criminal justice system looks more like the city it serves. And should she ever deputise at full council as a teacher and magistrate, I have no doubt that Carol will be able to manage even when members cannot be as easily muted as they can be today. Carol will bring all of her considerable talent and commitment to being Deputy Lord Mayor, and I know that I speak for the whole Labour group when I welcome her to this role.
Thank you very much. I would now like to call upon Councillor Weston to speak on behalf of the Conservative group. Councillor Weston.
Thank you very much, my Lord Mayor. I hope I'm coming through loud and clear. I feel like I'm taking part in our very own miniature Eurovision Song Contest, but I will resist the urge. First of all, I think on behalf of my group, and I think I'll probably say on behalf of the Chamber, I'd just like to first of all extend our thanks to all Bristol City Council staff who are continuing to serve the city and the residents and our communities in these trying times. In addition of a cat there, I saw. They've continued to serve. We value them highly, and I just want to say thank you to everything that they are doing. Now, from this point, I'd like to also say thank you to Councillor Cleo Lake. Obviously, she's stepping down as Deputy Lord Mayor. The threat of dance lessons then is somewhat receding for me, so I'm happy for that regard. But I wish we were all there in the chamber to thank her in person in the way that she deserves. She's been an excellent ambassador for the city, and on behalf of my group, thank you very much. But of course, welcome to Councillor Johnson as well. Now, she's discharging her duties as a councillor for a community with energy, which gives me confidence that she's going to be an excellent Deputy Lord Mayor in the next 12 months to come. I'm sure she's itching to get out there and discharging her duties, supporting you, my Lord Mayor, in the office, meeting the community and being that ambassadorial role for the city. I'm sure it will come soon enough, but for right now, we're staying tight. Now, what can I say to you, my Lord Mayor, Councillor Clark? Formidable, I believe, is the term. I think you're going to not today. We are more than delighted to support your second year as Lord Mayor. You've been excellent in your first 12 months. We look forward to the 12 ahead, and I think it's going to be a cracking top team. Well done, one and all.
Thank you very much indeed. I would now like to call upon Councillor Comley to speak on behalf of the Green Group. Councillor Comley.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, incoming Deputy Lord Mayor, outgoing Deputy Lord Mayor, thank you all for stepping up to do this duty on behalf of us all. Lord Mayor Jos Clark, thank you for your chairing this year. While I'd have to say I haven't always agreed with all your decisions, I think it is in the nature of trying to be a fair chair that no party group leader should feel they get their way 100% of the time. You have dealt with complex and contentious meetings with firm good humour and helped us all to get the business done. And thank you for agreeing to stay on for another year. I can see that when we are changing so much about the way we work as a council to deal with the consequences of this pandemic, it makes sense to have someone experienced continue in the role. And I appreciate that this may take a major change to your plans for the year. Deputy Lord Mayor Carol Johnson, thank you for coming forward to do this at such a strange and difficult time. I'm sure we all hope that before your year in office comes to an end, you will at least have some opportunities to attend visits and public gatherings, deputising for the Lord Mayor. But at the moment, it's far from clear that it will happen or how or when. So thank you for volunteering to take this leap into the dark, whatever this role may turn out to be. And finally, a few words of thanks to Councillor Cleo Lake, the outgoing Deputy Lord Mayor. Working with you as a fellow councillor for the last 4 years and watching you as Mayor and Deputy Lord Mayor over the last 2 has just been such a pleasure. You have worked to build bridges between communities in Bristol and beyond, and I so admire the way you consistently used your platform to highlight injustice and to speak up for those who suffer it and those who fight against it. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Councillor Comley. I would now like to call upon Councillor Wright to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrat group. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can you hear me? Good. Many congratulations, Lord Mayor. The great thing about Joss being Lord Mayor is that she gets to do what she loves, telling us all to shut up. I'm kidding. I mean, she does love that, but what I really meant is that she gets to be out meeting Bristolians and joining in with all the good things that people and organisations are doing in our city. And I'm sure that Joss has really enjoyed getting around all of Bristol in the last year. It's fair to say, I think, that over the last 20 years, Joss has lived and breathed and spoken Hengrove and Brislington. Two fine places, of course, but I know she's loved getting to see all the other communities in our city close up. And I hope the dreaded virus doesn't hinder too much the prospect of socially distanced events and openings across the city. So, Joss, I'm really happy for you. This is obviously a bit of an unexpected surprise to have a rollover year. You've done very well out of the elections being cancelled. I can't say I have. Of course, I was expecting to be nicely retired from the council by now. So I hope you've all forgotten my farewell speech from the last council. Never heard. My loss is your gain. So that's lovely, isn't it? Congratulations also and best wishes for the coming year to Councillor Carol Johnson. It's difficult to know what to say to the Deputy Mayor, who sort of relies on the Mayor being unavailable for whatever reason to have a go at the good stuff. So I do hope you get to have a good go. So maybe if Joss just gets a few colds or something, you know, not badly ill, obviously, but just enough to keep her stuck at home for a bit so that you needed to cover the duties for a while. I did see that this, for the first time, that for the 3 consecutive years, both the Lord Mayor and Deputy Lord Mayor have been women. And this is a good thing, I think, because for the first many hundreds of years, of course, both of them were men. So there's a bit of balancing to do. I think probably, you know, another couple of years should balance out the first 500 years. That seems reasonable to me. So best wishes to the both of you for the coming year.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Wright. The motion will now be put before full council by the Director of Legal and Democratic Services.
The motion before full council is that Councillor Joss Clark be elected as Lord Mayor of the municipal year 2020 to 2021. Can I take the motion as agreed? Any votes against? I declare that Councillor Joss Clark has been re-elected as Lord Mayor for the new council year. Councillor Clark, would you like to sign the declaration of acceptance of office? Please.
I, Councillor Joss Clark, have been elected to the office of Lord Mayor. Declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully carry out the duties of that office accordingly, to the best of my judgment and ability. Thank you. It's now my privilege and honour to just say a few words of thanks. I first of all would like to say some thank yous to those people who have supported me throughout the past year. I would firstly like to thank the residents of Brislington West for their support. It has been a great joy to be able to attend events put on in the ward, such as Springfest and the Allotment Show, which were great events in their own right. Being with so many people I know well was fantastic. I would like to thank this wonderful city of ours for allowing me to represent it as Lord Mayor. I have learned so much and met so many wonderful and lovely people. I will cherish the memory of those events and experiences for the rest of my life. It has been a privilege to represent the city further afield as well. And I was particularly lucky to be involved with HMS Prince of Wales as I visited the ship with Marvin when it was still under construction, then attended the commissioning in December. The relationship with our military partners is very important to this city, and this was no more apparent than on the 8th of May when we all came together to celebrate VE Day. I would also like to say a big thank you to all our partners across the city who contribute to the vibrancy and economic success of Bristol. Working alongside you with this past year has been a real learning experience. I would also like to thank all the officers who support the Lord Mayor's office. This includes Democratic Services. Thank you for all your hard work, particularly getting me through full council. All the drivers who have been wonderful. I would particularly like to thank Rachel and Pete for all their support and definitely their wisdom. Their knowledge is a real asset to the civic life of this city. I would like to thank all of my consorts who have supported me throughout the year. My son Hugo, who has made me very proud. I wasn't going to get emotional at that bit. My father, who has accompanied me, and I will have cherished memories of all of those times. And of course, my two mates, Andrew and Stephen, thank you. I would also like to thank the outgoing Deputy Lord Mayor and look forward to working with the incoming Deputy Lord Mayor. Finally, I would like to thank my employers who have generously allowed me to take a second year sabbatical, which has enabled me to carry on in this role for another year. So what have I learned from the past year? Well, it is clear that life hasn't turned out exactly as I expected it to. I have met the most wonderful people, seen fantastic things happening here in Bristol, right on our doorsteps. I have been to large festivals and seen small acts of kindness which have touched my heart, and I have learnt from all these experiences. I didn't expect to have been involved in a general election. Reading the declarations was a real honour. The loss of the Lord Mayor's chain of office was really tough because of its meaning to the city and the office it represents. And then we swiftly moved into the new normal of the pandemic. My diary emptied, and we quickly had to think of new ways of engaging with and communicating with residents. So what of the year to come? Who knows what life will look like as Lord Mayor? I will engage with people in whatever way is safest. I want to be part of the healing process and say thank you to all those who have given so much at this time. I'm also keenly aware that the city will need to take time to adjust and grieve for the loss of loved ones. And as Lord Mayor, I will be part of that healing process. Once again, thank you. And I look forward to serving the city for the coming year. Thank you very much indeed.
The motion before full council is that Councillor Carol Johnson be elected as Deputy Lord Mayor for the municipal year 2020 to 2021. Can I take the motion as agreed? Any vote against? I declare that Councillor Carol Johnson has been elected Deputy Lord Mayor for the new council year. Councillor Johnson, would you like to sign the declaration of acceptance of office?
I, Councillor Carol Johnson, having been elected to the office of Deputy Lord Mayor, declare that I take the office upon myself and will duly and faithfully carry out the duties of that office according to my best judgment and ability. Do I sign it first? Firstly, I'd like to say thank you to everyone. No one arrives in these positions on their own or gets there by themselves. In particular, I'd like to say thank you to all the communities that have so wonderfully supported me, to my family and to my friends, to my incoming consort, Jacqueline Stewart, and to my beloved boys, Tyrese and Christopher. I have a question for you, Bristol, and then I have a poem. Bear with me. Parlez-vous français? How many languages do you speak? Here in Bristol, we speak over 100. Although now, more than ever before, we need to celebrate our in common humanity. I would love to see our diverse citizenship united and standing together. So what languages can we share for such a time as this and post-COVID-19? Well, how about the languages of compassion, kindness, more, often, in the city of sanctuary and hope? That's what I'd like to see. And now, my poem. I'm not the first to stand before you with robe, chains, and black skin. I'm not the first. For many who had robes taken away in exchange for chains of a different kind came before me, and they had brown skins too. So I'm not the first. I'm not the first with a black skin to be called a deputy mayoress. The one whom I will mention went first before me, and her name too was Carol, a name well suited, can I say, for this role. Her father, Jim, was the first black Lord Mayor here in Bristol City Council. He was the first one, but will not be the last. Jim served as the first brown Lord Mayor in 1990. He made his daughter, Carol, Deputy Lady Mayoress. And in a series of life's strange and fateful twists, Jim was, as I am, also a Justice of the Peace, serving also, as I am, Councillor for Ashley Ward. So it's with great pride that I say, I am not the first. In my research about Jim, found hidden under the bed in a box of treasure left by the former community activist Albert Stewart, was a newspaper clipping found on the eve of the day I was required to make my decision to stand as candidate for this role. In the article, it shared the marvellous attributes of Jim and his life. And in another extraordinary twist, it listed the names of his children. Listed amongst them were Winston, Carol, and Raymond. So we, my brothers and I, astonishingly, are not the first, as we too are called Winston, Carol, and Rayan. I'm not sure why this information came to me when it did, but it made me to stand. because although I'm not the first, I refuse to be the last. And it seems clear to me that someone, somewhere, wants us to know that, as they say, half the story has never been told. These journeys in this city began a long time ago, and it is now up to us, standing in line, second, third, and fourth, to continue on these journeys. For all those who stood in the past and all those who will stand in the future, I will stand. We will stand together as bridges to the Bristol that we want to see, a can-do Bristol. Thank God for all those who stood successfully first. We are grateful and we remember and we salute you. Thank you for passing on the batons. So, I'm not the first, but I am here now. And I will do my utmost to honour this wonderful city and all of her citizens. Our collective journeys, past, present, and future. Martin Luther King famously said, "The time is always right to do the right thing. If I cannot do great things, I can do small things in a great way. And this Bristol is my intention and my promise to you now." Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to propose a motion of thanks to the outgoing Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Cleo Lake. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hants?
Beg your pardon. Yes, seconded.
Thank you very much indeed. Can I take the motion as agreed? Any votes against? Thank you very much. The motion is carried. I would now like to move on to agenda item 6, minutes from the previous meeting. Firstly, I move the minutes of the meeting of the council held on the 17th of March 2020 as a correct record. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kent?
Yes, Lord Mayor, seconded.
Thank you very much. Can I take that the minutes are agreed? Are there any votes against? Thank you very much. The minutes are agreed. Thank you. I would now like to move on to agenda item 7, declarations of interest. Can I please ask whether any councillors have any interest to declare regarding the items on today's agenda? Thank you. I would now like to move on to agenda item 8, Lord Mayor's business. I remain saddened that the Lord Mayor's chain of office has not yet been recovered. By no means replacing the official set today, I am wearing a different set, which was a gift to the city from the Society of Bristolians in London. The society was founded in 1903, and the chains were gifted a gift of Oscar Berry Esquire, the first president and chairman in 1939. I continue to hope for the safe return of the official Lord Mayor's chains. Thank you. I would now like to move to agenda item 9, written public statements. Under the Constitution, there is no provision for public forum at the annual council meeting. However, as indicated on the agenda, it was agreed that written statements about the reports on this agenda could be submitted to this meeting. 2 statements were received as shown on the screen. These have been circulated to all councillors and the Mayor prior to the meeting. Council receives and notes these statements. Thank you. I would now like to move on to agenda item 10, update from the youth mayors. Back in March, we were due to hear an update from the youth mayors and youth council. This was unfortunately deferred. Oliver Busher, one of our youth mayors, is now going to address full council. I'd like to bring him into the room. He's here. Oliver, would you like to do your presentation, please?
Yes. Hello, my name is Oliver and I am the chair of the Youth Council, and I'm here today to update you on our campaigns and speak on behalf of the Youth Council. The Youth Council, youth mayors and members of Youth Parliament. Unfortunately, our last opportunity to speak in front of you as a larger group was cancelled due to social distancing. And as a compromise, I'm here today to update you all. In the February half term, we had a residential in the Forest of Dean and made our plans for what we would try and achieve over the next year. A month later, the entire country was in lockdown, which unfortunately rendered many of those plans obsolete. We are currently working in our campaign groups to organise ways in which we can continue doing our jobs while staying in our own homes. The Youth Voice campaign group are currently working on how they can still keep in contact with young people during lockdown. They have coordinated a large collection of resources that we as a youth council can use, not necessarily just for work, but for wellbeing checks as well. This has been incredibly valuable. Supported Mental Wellbeing have been working really hard to make sure young people in Bristol have had access to services and virtual places to go when they aren't feeling their best. Mental health has been and is a really big issue during this lockdown, and the group have helped to produce newsletters and other resources in order to make sure that young people know where to go. These have been distributed over social media and other platforms, and this work has been incredibly valuable. Environment and Transport are still working on their pre-COVID campaign, which involves interviewing and talking to businesses in Bristol in regards to how they can lower their environmental impact. They are doing an amazing job with this and are making amazing progress. Equal Bristol have been working on adapting their campaigns to the current climate and have done so incredibly well. They are keeping in contact with schools to make sure sanitary products are getting where they need to be, as well as continuing to work on their project regarding the quality of LGBTQ+ education in schools. Our media reps have also been doing amazing work, compiling a Youth Council-wide newsletter that will be distributed shortly, full of updates and ways to stay positive and occupied in the current time. Also, today is the launch of We Are Bristol Kids, which is a service that will help provide educational and entertaining Bristol-focused content in order to spark an interest in the local area and local democracy. Overall, I am very proud of every single one of the youth councillors as they've continued to do excellent work, as well as keeping their heads high. Another huge acknowledgement also goes to the staff who have continued to facilitate our youth Zoom meetings, as well as performing regular wellbeing checks, which has been hugely beneficial to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Oliver. That was really, really interesting. I think touching on mental health is really important at this time. And the issues for young people and mental health moving forward is going to be a real one. So I commend you, the fact that as a group, you are thinking ahead and working out ways to communicate and support people within the community, young people particularly. I would also like to say thank you, because you did touch upon how tricky the future is likely to be for young people. Their courses have been interrupted, education has been interrupted, and apprenticeships have been interrupted as well. And to be working as a group to think about positive ways forward and supporting people, young people, in looking at pathways to a good and sustained future, I think is a really good piece of work that you're all doing. So thank you so much for everything you do, and keep at it. And communicating with your age group and your community, I think is probably the most valuable thing that you can do at this time. So I do thank you for all your efforts. I would now like to ask Mayor Rees if he would like to say a few words.
Thanks, Lord Mayor, and thanks for your talk, Oliver. Really appreciated. And I think I'll just pick up on one of the themes you raised that Helen Godwin's been very keen on, just to recognise the challenge of today, of what it means to be a young person in lockdown. One is about missing school, We know that just that disruption to life and the anxiety it can bring to young people with the scale of challenge we face. It brings anxiety to everyone, but young people having to process that. And also the legacy of this. We've been very clear, and I was on a conference this morning just saying, when we talk about recovery, it's not just the big numbers in the economy. We have to look at the legacy of people being locked down, the mental health cost, the lost relationships, the instability, the interruption to the educational journey as well. And particularly as we think about all the challenges that, even around school openings, those young people for whom home is not the safest place. And that's one of the things that we are grappling with as a city as well. How do we continue to offer that pastoral care? So all those issues that you're talking about all drive into that: the mental health, the work on period poverty, the work on LGBTQ plus, all that work of how we build an inclusive city, one that draws people in. I want to also just to take this opportunity to acknowledge the maturity of the vision that young people have offered in Bristol. Last year at the city gathering, we always take up 3 overarching priorities from the list of priorities that we've got in the plan for this year. And we gave one of those priorities up to our young people to decide on between youth councillors, youth mayors and Babasa. And I think a number of people were surprised that actually what they focused on was transport, and in particular long-term infrastructure plans, not that immediate gratification of a project here, project there, but building the city for the future, a low carbon transport offer. And I thank you for the example you've set there. And I just want to acknowledge the quality of the political debate you enter into. I think it's a genuine search for truth, a genuine search for solutions, and it's something that perhaps our chamber would do well to emulate as well. And also just to recognise the launch of We Are Bristol Kids. You're not kids, you're young adults obviously coming through into leadership, but nonetheless constantly from the very beginning, the youth mayors have stressed the importance of investing in the mental health and well-being, investing in those platforms that give the trajectory to the rest of the life early doors. And hopefully by working with you and We Are Bristol Kids, we will be able to make this investment in the face that we want to work with you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon, Oliver. Thank you. I would now like to move on to agenda item 11, dates and times of full council meetings 2020 to 2021. As Lord Mayor, I would like to move this report. Please can I ask Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Johnson, to second the report?
Lord Mayor, I'm happy to second this report.
Thank you. Party group whips have been fully consulted on this report. If there are no objections, I therefore propose to move directly to voting on the report's recommendations, which are to provide the dates and times of full council meetings for 2020-21. The report's recommendation is shown on the screen. Can I take this as agreed? Are there any votes against? Thank you. The motion is carried. I would now like to move on to item 12, establishment of committees 2020 to 2021. This report asks full council to establish committees for the year ahead. The report also allocates chairs and vice chairs for those committees and commissions as outlined in Appendix B. As Lord Mayor, I move the report. Please can I ask Deputy Lord Mayor to second the report?
Lord Mayor, I'm very happy to second the report.
Thank you very much. Party group whips have been fully consulted on this report. If there are no objections, I would therefore propose to move directly to voting on the report's recommendations to approve the council committees for 2020 to 2021. The report's recommendations are shown on the screen. Can I take it as agreed? Are there any votes against? Thank you very much indeed. The motion is carried. I would now like to move on to agenda item 13, allocation of committee seats and appointment of members of committee. This report asks Council's agreement to the allocation of seats on committees in accordance with the statutory requirements concerning political balance. As Lord Mayor, I move the report. Please can I ask Deputy Lord Mayor to second the report?
Lord Mayor, I'm happy to second this report.
Thank you very much. Again, party group whips have been fully consulted on this report. If there are no objections, I therefore propose to move directly to voting on this report's recommendations to approve the allocation of seats on committees. In so doing, I ask full council to please formally agree the licensing committee membership. The report's recommendations are shown on the screen. Can I take that as agreed? Can I ask, are there any voting against? Thank you very much indeed. The motion is carried. I would now like to move on to agenda item 14, the appointment of the Chief Executive and paid Head of Services. As Lord Mayor, I move the report which recommends that Mike Jackson be appointed Chief Executive and Head of Paid Services with effect from the 22nd of May 2020 on a permanent contract. Please can I ask the Deputy Lord Mayor to second the report?
Lord Mayor, I second the report.
Thank you very much. There has been an amendment to the recommendation on this report as shared on the screen now. This recommendation has been published on the website. Please, may I ask Councillor Hopkins to move the amendment? Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Firstly, we welcome the appointment of our new Chief Executive, and the only regret is that it has taken so long for us to have a resumption of this particular post. I think, though, that everyone needs to bear in mind that we need to be fair with all our and objective with all our performance management and our treatment of staff. I think I need to do no more than point out that just 3 years ago, under this present administration, clear recommendations were made from the HR committee, this time the HR committee, there was nothing in the report and it was silent on other matters. The clear recommendations from the HR committee, which were endorsed unanimously by full council and all parties in March 2017. In that report, there was a very clear risk register, and basically it actually said, if you do not support these matters, these are the dangers. And that has not come from myself or from the party seconding this. This has came from objectively from HR officers giving advice to the council during the present administration. They warned that if we do not have this procedure, we have a danger of actually just one party controlling all matters. I think in actual fact, from speaking to a number of members of the Labour Party, that it wouldn't just be the whole Labour Party either. Some members of the Labour Party possibly don't know fully what's actually happening in the number of matters. It also says we may be in breach of employment contract. The achievement of key priorities of the council may be monitored less frequently under a casual system and an informal system. The absence of a framework for judgments on the performance would be a very poor outcome, and openness and transparency would actually be eroded. And that is a matter that's very much in the public mind at the moment, openness and transparency. I would say to everybody, whichever party they represent, we must fully welcome our new chief executive, who is a very different kettle of fish to what we had previously. And I think that he needs full support. And I would hope that we can all work together to deliver
You have 20 seconds left.
Deliver a solid, objective framework for him to work with. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'd now like to call upon Councillor Abraham to second the amendment. You have 3 minutes, Councillor.
Wishes on behalf of the Conservative group and myself to you as Lord Mayor. And in the words of the BBC, we hope that normal service will resume as soon as possible. And the chain really does start that process off. This is quite a serious amendment. And can we be clear on two things? We fully support it, and we fully support the appointment of Mike Jackson as the Chief Executive. Because the appointment of Chief Executive must be transparent. It must be clear who that Chief Executive serves. I've had the pleasure of serving under a great number of Chief Executives over the years, and our history recently has not been very good, and I really think we need to get this one right. The Chief Executive is a role that I've always respected. I've found it to be independent and free and clear on it. The system that we have is that we as councillors are accountable to the electorate. The officers are accountable to the council, not an individual party, not one party, not one councillor, two councillors, to the whole council. And that is really what we're asking for. A chief executive that can do the job and not come back in a little time with controversy and disagreements taking place. And I think we do this to safeguard the offices such as the elected mayor, who would be placed in a very difficult position if wheels come off wagons. And we've seen them come off in recently. So let's support this amendment. It's said a lot of time, this isn't party political. I'm sure there are members right across the chamber who will understand it should be their chief executive. The chief executive working responsible to them, but of course, listening to the mayor and the controlling party. That is the job, and they've done it in the past very successfully. And we're convinced, my Lord Mayor, that Mike Jackson can do it well into the future. But don't start him with his hands tied behind his back. Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much indeed. We will now hear from the speakers on the amendment. I would first of all like to call Councillor Wellington on to speak on behalf of the Labour group. Councillor Wellington, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and also congratulations on your reappointment. I'm pleased to be able to speak to the Liberal amendment, which I note is a joint motion essentially with the Conservative group. So turning first to the word of the amendment, I mean, it's not right, I'm afraid. Having spoken to HR officers and studied the minutes from 2016 and 2017 and so on, it's clear that the arrangement for a performance management panel relates to that specific post holder at that particular time in 2017. The person at the time was appointed on a fixed term basis with arrangements for performance related pay, which the panel referred to in the amendment was to consider. It relates specifically to that unusual set of circumstances, and this is made clear in the minutes. The new chief executive, the one we're hoping to appoint here, will be appointed on a permanent basis, and there's no provision for performance related pay. This isn't all though. We have to be serious here. These are unusual times, and we need clear leadership for senior officers, and also a constructive partnership with the political leadership of the council. This kind of politically motivated amendment is just inappropriate when we face the biggest crisis of most of our lifetimes, and our council faces an unprecedented set of challenges. I mean, the point I'm making is, this amendment was raised after the selection committee, when terms and conditions and lines of accountability had already been agreed with the candidate and his employer. Making amendments to agreed selection committee recommendations a few days before full council and firing off press releases to try and alter the terms of an officer's employment just makes us, as a set of councillors, look a bit unprofessional, to be honest. If we're going to do it, we'll do it properly through cross-party discussion, through the appropriate committees, and according to best practice, not by a last-minute amendment at full council. As chair of the HR committee in the coming year, I'm happy for us to consider ways in which we as a committee or as a council can ensure senior officers are accountable to elected members. I mean, that's why we're here. I get that. The leader of the Liberal Party who tabled this amendment sits on the HR committee, so he's going to have ample opportunity to feed into that. However, resurrecting this old policy from the dead, which was tailored for a specific post holder with very different employment terms to what we've got now, it's not the right way to go about it. And neither's trying to set the terms and conditions of the council's most senior officer by press release, frankly. So we'll be voting against this amendment, but we can have a think about how we deal with this issue, but we'll do it properly. We'll do it in a professional way. Thanks.
Thank you very much indeed. I would now like to call upon Councillor Stevens to speak on behalf of the Green Party. Councillor Stevens, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and congratulations on your re-election. And to everyone else, it's great to see you again, and I hope you've been able to keep well. I'll be voting for Mike Jackson to take on the role. As you saw from my written statement, I can't think of anyone better. I'll also be voting for this amendment, although I take Councillor Wellington's point, it would be good to do it properly. The amendment is simply reenacting what was agreed in March 2017, and it's about full council rightly re-exerting its authority over the Constitution. Full council is in charge of the Constitution and not the Mayor. So, Labour councillors, we need your vote to help restore this aspect of Bristol's democracy. Let's do it properly. The amendment will create a structure giving Mike Jackson the opportunity to rebuild mutual trust between some officers and some councillors. And over the past few years, I've sat in some meetings where I wondered, can I trust what's being said? And regretfully, I've come to the conclusion that no, I can't. The person might have been unduly influenced by, or fearful even, of pressure from boss or boss's boss because their performance appraised and reporting into the Mayor. And I stress it's a need for mutual trust. Here's a recent example that shows there's still a problem. March the 16th this year, Audit Committee met. I chaired because Mark Brain was in self-isolation, and we discussed Bristol Energy's governance. It's a gender item, and Jeff Gollop put some statements in. And Jeff, as you know, is full council's observer on Bristol Energy. What we didn't know was that the new managing director of Bristol Energy started exactly that same day, and the previous one left the week before. You'd think that the most important fact about governance would have been passed on, at least to Jeff Gollop or to one of the senior officers there. But no, we blindly talked on and on and on about getting another report when the actual solution had already been enacted. Nobody told us. Maybe the officers didn't know either, and there were some pretty senior ones there. And if they didn't know, then I fear loss of trust is spreading. So to conclude, we need to work together to rebuild that mutual trust. Appointing Mike Jackson as Chief Executive is a fantastic step forward.
Can you draw to a close, please,
Yeah.
Councillor Stevens?
And I can think of no better person to make it happen. And passing this amendment is another great step forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. We will now move to a vote on the amendment as published. This will be done using by a roll call. You are voting on the amendment and the names will be read out in alphabetical order. Councillors are asked to be alert for their names to be called. Unmute yourselves and say either for, against, or abstain. then remute yourself. Thank you.
Councillor Abraham.
For.
Councillor Don Alexander.
Against.
Councillor Leslie Alexander. Councillor Leslie Alexander. Councillor Beach.
Against.
Councillor Bowden Jones.
Against.
Councillor Bradley.
Against.
Councillor Bradshaw.
Against.
Councillor Brain. Councillor Brooke.
Against.
Councillor Breckles.
Against.
Councillor Carey.
For.
Councillor Cheney.
Against.
Councillor Barry Clark.
Against.
Councillor Stephen Clark.
For.
Councillor Clough.
For.
Councillor Comley.
For.
Councillor Craig.
Against.
Councillor Chris Davies.
For.
Councillor Mike Davies.
Against.
Councillor Denyer.
For.
Councillor Dudd.
Against.
Councillor Eddy.
For.
Councillor English.
For.
Councillor Fodor.
For.
Councillor Godwin.
Against.
Could you repeat, please?
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Goggin.
Against.
Councillor Gollop.
For.
Councillor Galandris.
For.
Councillor Hants.
For.
Councillor Hickman. Councillor Hickman.
Against.
Councillor Hiscott.
For.
Councillor Holland.
Against.
Councillor Hopkins.
For.
Councillor Jackson.
Against.
Councillor Jammer.
Against.
Councillor Johnson.
Against.
Councillor Jones.
For.
Councillor Keane.
Against.
Councillor Kent.
For.
Councillor Khan. Councillor Khan. Councillor Kirk.
Against.
Councillor Lake.
For.
Councillor Lovell. Councillor Lovell. Councillor Massey.
Against.
Councillor Mead. Councillor Malias.
For.
Councillor Morris.
For.
Councillor Negus.
For.
Councillor O'Rourke.
For.
Councillor Pearce.
Against.
Councillor Phipps.
Against.
Councillor Pickersgill.
Against.
Councillor Quarterly.
For.
Councillor Radford.
For.
Councillor Rippington.
Against.
Councillor Sargent.
Against.
Councillor Shah.
Against.
Councillor Steve Smith.
For.
Councillor Paul Smith.
Against.
Councillor Stevens.
For.
Councillor Thomas.
For.
Councillor Threlfall.
Against.
Councillor Tinknell.
Against.
Councillor Wellington.
Against.
Councillor Weston.
For. I've missed it.
Councillor Whittle.
Against.
Councillor Windows.
For.
Councillor Wright.
For.
Mayor Rees.
Against.
Are there any other councillors who... Councillor Lovell.
Against.
Are there any other councillors present who would like to vote who have not done so already? Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Can we all see the screen in front of us? I will read it out just in case people can't. It was 34, 35 against, and 0 abstentions. So the motion, the amended motion, is lost. What I would like to do now is move to the substantive motion, and I would now like to move to the speakers for the substantive motion. I would first of all like to call upon Councillor Wellington to speak on behalf of the Labour Group. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's me again. So I chaired the selection committee that made this recommendation to full council. So I've been asked to speak again on behalf of the Labour Group. For the benefit of members not fully acquainted with all this, the background is at the end of last year, the LGA produced an update report on Bristol City Council's leadership, governance and financial planning arrangements, which, while overwhelmingly positive, made a recommendation that we would benefit from the clarity and clear lines of accountability that Chief Executive would bring, both internally and also to our external partners. So, we've undergone quite a few restructures in recent years, but I do think this recommendation from the LGA was right, particularly with the change in role of the council as a result of the coronavirus crisis and the key role the councils are going to play when, hopefully when things return to normal. The reinstatement of Chief Executive, to me, seems sensible in the circumstances. This was discussed and debated at the last meeting of the Human Resources Committee, which I chaired, and it secured unanimous and cross-party agreement. At the selection committee last week, it was decided that Mike Jackson, the existing head of paid service, would be appointed as Chief Executive and head of paid service following his interview. And again, all councillors from across all parties approved the recommendation that we have before us. The terms and conditions of his contract and the framework for line management and accountability was set out at this meeting, which was attended by and approved by an independent observer from the LGA. I personally, and I believe I speak for all those in my group who voted, I was very impressed by Mr. Jackson's plan for the council if he's appointed, and I very much hope that full council will approve this recommendation so that we can get the new structure up and running as soon as possible. I will also add that this is not an additional post to the one being vacated, and it's got no additional cost attached to it. The post of Director of Resources has been abolished and effectively replaced with this, so there's no pay increase and no further cost to the council. So hopefully we can approve this and move forward.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wellington. I would now like to invite Councillor Eddy from the Conservatives group to speak to the substantive motion. Thank you, Councillor Eddy. You have 3 minutes.
I'm Lord Mayor. 2 years ago, I was privileged to serve on Mike Jackson's selection committee for his previous post. Mike impressed us then, and we voted unanimously in favour of him. Since then, in the post and leadership he's actually held in the city, he's impressed everyone. It wasn't no surprise to me, therefore, that the committee which met for this post voted unanimously to award him the post. The Tory group of councillors have no hesitation in fully backing this and supporting Mike Jackson as Chief Executive. Now I say, personally and on behalf of my group, I was very disappointed the very reasonable proposed amendment fell. I do regret that, and believe Bristolians will regret it. Finally, I commend Mike Jackson for his courage, because bearing in mind what happened to his two previous predecessors, he needs courage in this post. So again, Mike Jackson, well done.
Thank you very much indeed. I would now like to call upon Councillor Comley to speak on behalf of the Green Group. You have 3 minutes, Councillor. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm delighted to be able to support the appointment of Mike Jackson as Chief Executive of the Council on behalf of my group. Moving back to having a Chief Executive has been raised as a good way for this Council to improve. As Councillor Wellington said, by the Local Government Association. It was also supported by all parties in the discussions in HR committee. And I really feel that it is the right move forward for us as an organisation. And if this is the right role, then Mike Jackson is the right person to put in that role. As head of paid service, he has already been fulfilling the statutory duties that go along with it. And as Executive Director of Resources, I believe he has earned the trust of staff and council members alike. He has certainly gained mine. I had the pleasure of sitting on the selection panel that is recommending this appointment. And without revealing any of the detail of that confidential process, I can perhaps just say that it was a pleasure to hear a clear vision for this organisation, a firm grasp of the important issues, and the unflappability and very welcome willingness to speak truth to power that all of us who have worked with Mike over the last couple of years would no doubt expect. So thanks to everyone in HR and selection who's got us to this point, and congratulations, Mike.
Thank you very much. I would now like to call upon Councillor Kent to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrats. You have 3 minutes, Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll try to keep it brief. We fully endorse the appointment of Mike Jackson as Chief Executive. I did not sit on this panel, but I did sit on the appointment panel for him as Head of Paid Service. And it was very clear that he brings a great deal of experience to the organisation. He does have a clear vision. And I think since that appointment, certainly as a backbench councillor, I found that when I wanted to address issues to him, he deals with them quickly. I don't always like the answers, but there's nothing new in that. I do appreciate the fact he does always give a very quick and full response. Obviously, like many in the opposition, I regret that the ruling group has decided to vote down the concept of a performance management committee, which I think would have helped protect our chief executive and help him perform better. I take on board what the chair of HR has said. I hope those are genuine words. I mean, we did make approaches in private, but we're told clearly that the manager will be up to the mayor. I think it would benefit the role of chief executive and the mayor if we were able to engage all councillors in helping set the agenda for the chief executive and the performance. But putting that aside, we fully and utterly endorse him in this role. It's good that we could endorse a chief executive. Last time round, we were not in that position. We were not able to endorse the proposal. This time we certainly can.
Thank you. I would now like to move to the vote on the report's recommendation as shown on your screen. On the screen. You are voting on the motion on the table. I would like to ask Councillor Hickman on behalf of the Labour Group, how would your councillors vote?
For.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Weston, on behalf of the Conservative Group, how do your councillors vote?
The Conservative Group votes in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Comley, on behalf of the Green Group, how do your councillors vote?
For.
Councillor Hopkins, on behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group, how do your councillors vote?
We're more than happy to support this motion and wish Mr. Jackson the best for his term as our Chief Executive.
I take that as you're voting for. Can I ask, are there any votes against? Thank you very much. The motion is carried. Thank you. I would now like to move on to agenda item 15, Constitution Update, Members' Code of Conduct for Development and Control Committees. As Lord Mayor, I move the report which presents a revised Code of Conduct for Development and Control Committees. The report has been reviewed by the Value and Ethics Subcommittee and endorsed by Audit Committee and recommended to full council for adoption. Please can I ask the Deputy Lord Mayor to second the report?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I second the report.
Thank you very much. The recommendations are as per the report and are shown on the screen. Can I take that as agreed? Can I ask, is there anybody voting against? Thank you very much indeed. The motion is carried. I would now like to move on to agenda item 16, Constitution Update, Members' Code of Conduct for Licensing Committee and Public Safety and Protection Committee. As Lord Mayor, I move the report which presents a revised Code of Conduct of Conduct for Licensing Committee and Public Safety and Protection Committee. The report has been reviewed by the Value and Ethics Subcommittee and endorsed by the Audit Committee and recommended to full council for adoption. Please can I ask the Deputy Lord Mayor to second the report?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I second the report.
Thank you. The recommendations are as the report and are shown on the screen. Can I take that these are agreed? Can I ask, is there anybody voting against? Thank you. It is carried. I would now like to move on to item 17, Constitution Update, Virtual Meetings Procedure Rules. As Lord Mayor, I move the report which presents the procedure rules for adoption as part of the Council's constitution to enable the Council to conduct virtual meetings. Please can I ask the Deputy Lord Mayor to second the report?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I second the report.
We will now hear from speakers on this report. I would now like to call Councillor Asher Craig to speak on behalf of the Labour Group. Councillor Craig, you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and can I congratulate both yourself and Councillor Carol Johnson on your appointments today as Lord Mayor and Deputy Lord Mayor. Welcome to the new world of digital democracy. By embracing digital technology via Zoom, Microsoft Teams, we're continuing to be accountable to our residents and business during this time. The use of virtual meetings has seen a real shift in the numbers of individuals, organisations and groups who would not ordinarily have turned up at City Hall due to childcare, work commitments, or really no interest in democracy at all. But I need to acknowledge that not everyone in this city has the luxury of being digitally connected, as we see the growing inequalities that are playing out during this public health crisis. The digital divide is one obstacle to participation. And I would like to see how our political debates open up to voices and communities that do not ordinarily enter this space. Earlier in the year, we agreed to pilot deliberative democracy pilots. And I'm working with officers and Councillor O'Rourke on our approach to enable citizens' engagement with the work we are doing, particularly around the recovery of the city post-COVID. I acknowledge that digital democracy has its risks, one of which is its gentrification, in which offline disadvantage is reinforced and amplified online. We need to look at this in a different way. With the endless possibilities of digital, we need to use our technology to increase participation and engagement in civic life and find a way to make this a part of the new and inclusive way in which we engage with the city going forward. Thanks.
Thank you very much indeed. I would now like to call upon Councillor Steve Smith to speak on behalf of the Conservative Group. Councillor Smith, you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor, and congratulations to you and to your new deputy and to Mike as well as our new chief executive. It's a pity that we can't be there today to celebrate with you in person with the full ceremony that would normally happen. But as with everything else in life at the moment, we have to make the best of the situation in which we find ourselves. And I think these new procedure rules do exactly that. They allow us to, as the military like to put it, to improvise, adapt and overcome. And they do get us back, I think, to as close as we reasonably can in the circumstances to where we were before in allowing members of the public to participate in our work. And it's something we have missed. I sit on one of the planning committees, so I've taken part in a couple of the online meetings so far. In fact, I think I actually took part in the very first one, and they've worked well, but we do miss that public voice. Yes, we get written representations, and to reassure members of the public watching, we do read those carefully and we do take them seriously, but it's not the same as being able to see somebody's face and hear what they have to say to you directly. So I really welcome the fact that we will be able to do that from now on under these new procedures. I just want to say thank you and a big well done to the officers that have got us to this point and allowed this to happen. I know people have gone above and beyond already to allow us to carry on our work in really difficult circumstances, and I'm sure everyone really appreciates that and would like to extend our thanks to them. And finally, to echo what Councillor Craig has said, I hope that this new means of engagement isn't something that we lose when we go back to face-to-face meetings whenever that may happen, fully accepting that there are people who don't have access to the digital means of engagement. There are also people who simply cannot get to City Hall for a mid-afternoon meeting or a 5 p.m. public forum. And I hope that in the new normal, whatever that looks like, that we'll be able to engage people digitally as well as face-to-face to increase the overall opportunity people have to engage in our meetings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would now like to call upon Councillor Martin Fodor to speak on behalf of the Green Group. You have 3 minutes, Councillor Fodor. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and welcome to the new municipal year, Lord Mayor, Deputy Lord Mayor, and our new Chief Executive. I'm glad to comment and support these new virtual meeting procedure rules. Firstly, I'd like to offer my personal thanks to our officers who've really pulled out all the stops to get the council online and ensure meetings can continue during this difficult period. I'm on the Member Development Steering Group, and I saw the immense efforts put in place and rehearse and get ready our new online meeting facilities. Officers also created tutorial videos for members and coaxed some of us into the new and unfamiliar world of Zoom waiting rooms and electronic raised hands. So well done. We couldn't have held this meeting without them, and they need as much support as it takes to help us manage our meetings. It's all the more achievement when you consider some councils simply gave up and delegated decisions indefinitely to a chief officer and a leader. And at least one council met online to decide they couldn't meet online. So our thanks due for the representative democracy continuing here in Bristol. And to my colleague, Councillor Lake, for her Give and Tech initiative to try and get digital equipment out into the community as well. A positive side of these online meetings is that for some people unable to travel to City Hall or take time away from caring or whatever, there is now a better chance to take part in meetings before, thanks to these virtual facilities. And this widened participation is something I want us to look into and consider as a permanent option. Last year, I helped develop the Council of Europe Guidance and Toolkit on e-democracy for a working group of governments in Strasbourg, reported to 47 ministers across Europe last year. We very much emphasised how electronic channels complement traditional democracy. This should not be an either or choice. So please can we consider this mix as the procedure review clause 7 allows. Finally, I'd like to highlight a couple of issues in these new rules though. Section 5 of the procedure itself excludes the public from presenting their statements. And yet paragraph 5 of this report, in fact, leaves this participation to the discretion of the chair. The report calls this transparency in decision making and a commitment to facilitating public participation in council meetings. I think it needs to be sorted, since the chair of a committee can vary from one meeting to the next if there's a deputy in place. I doubt this is actually clear.
You have 20 seconds left.
Sure. Let's make the default a right to be heard. I'm also concerned about the lack of supplementary questions to answers given, and we know this can be the only way to press for a useful answer. So in conclusion, if this is a permanent constitutional change, let's make sure we're as clear and positive as we can be. Let's ensure we not only maintain but widen our democracy, commit resources to ensure full speaking rights and public participation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd now like to call upon Councillor Anthony Negus to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group. You have 3 minutes, Councillor. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and congratulations to all today's appointees. I think this process was brought in a very sensible way, and I applaud the officers who've managed to put it in place and debug it, and also to thank all members who've sensibly taken part in a new process and then try to engage with it and help other colleagues out who've struggled a bit more than others, perhaps. I wanted just to raise perhaps 3 observations. The first one is that we shouldn't see this process as a way of making it more difficult to hold virtual meetings in the interim. They've been proved to work. They're a bit clunky at times, but basically they can work and they should be made to work, and they should at the moment, in the situation we find ourselves, be the real alternative to face-to-face meetings that we've been used to. The second thing is, and I can tell you for sure that this chair will certainly make sure there's as much openness and transparency and democracy in this council as possible, we must make sure that everybody as much as possible can be engaged in this process. And the one downside of this is that there is an exclusion of people that don't have digital access. That concerns me a lot. And if we go forward, as I suspect we might, in a partial virtual atmosphere, even when we do get back to hugging each other again, I do hope that we're going to make sure that that provision, that concern is maintained, and that we find a way through that process. And I'm very pleased to say that in 2009, we actually had a system in this council and with the police force in taking used laptops or old laptops and getting them out to the community and in fact to third world countries. So I'm very pleased that that's been resurrected. It was a very good system while it lasted and before it was allowed to fade away. The third thing I wanted to say, and it's not in the report in so many words, is that I think all of us might agree that we'd want to get back to real meetings as soon as possible. I said earlier that I suspect we're going to be in a hybrid system going forward, and I think that's to be welcomed, and I'd like the people who put this report together to consider the future as well. But in the meantime, let's please not use this.
You have 20 seconds left, Councillor.
Let's not use this system as a way to stop the opportunity as soon as possible for us to get back together and engage as many people as possible in this democratic process, which we all should be very proud of. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The recommendations are as per the report and shown on the screen. Can I take that is agreed? Can I ask, are there any votes against? I declare the motion is carried. Thank you. That concludes today's meeting. Thank you to all the councillors for attending and others observing the meeting today. The next meeting of full council will be held on the 26th of May 2020, starting at 2 p.m. Thank you very much indeed, and goodbye.